So at this time, it is my esteemed privilege, Dr. Jones, to welcome you to the stage of Palmyra High School to share with the dark team your memories of Palmyra High School and the things you've accomplished in your life.
I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have been blessed to be honored at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts with the Legacy of the Dream Award bestowed by Georgetown University. I've been blessed to be honored by the British Museum in London and by the Rothman Institute at Oxford University. I've been blessed to have been honored by the United States Embassy in the Ukraine and at the Sciences Po University in Paris. And in 2008, by the Nobel, there's a committee of Nobel laureates gathered in Paris. And I was honored to be part of their guest. These are people who have received the former Nobel Peace Prize. And yes, I have been the recipient of honorary degrees from various universities around the country. But few things. And of course, in 2015, I was honored by the President of the United States in the Oval Office. But few things mean so much to me as the honor which you bestow on me today. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't pay special tribute to the daughter of a classmate of mine. The classmate was Gwendolyn Still, and her daughter is Valerie Still. And Valerie Still and Gwendolyn Still, of course, they're part of that great Still legacy going back to William Still, who was born in 1821, died in 1902, but he was a conductor, an abolitionist conductor in Philadelphia on the Underground Railroad. He was considered to be the co-conductor with Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman, by the way, she said something which I want to share with you. And she says that, quote, "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. I would not be here today but for Valerie Still carrying out the legacy of her beloved mother Gwendolyn and her great whatever, I don't know, William Still. So Valerie, would you stand up? No, please, Valerie Still. I want you to stand up. I want to acknowledge you. By affording me the opportunity to come back and for you to honor me, you also provide me with the opportunity that I have wanted to do for almost these 70 years since I have graduated. And that is to publicly acknowledge and commemorate my parents, Mary Elizabeth Tolliver Jones and Goldsboro Benjamin Jones, live-in domestic household servants. I was an only child. My father had a 4th grade education. My mother, an 8th grade education. So, and to acknowledge their love for me, and to further acknowledge the love when I got to Palmyra High School, the principal, the teachers who embraced me and encouraged me. And as I sat and listened and watched that music performance, I sat on that stage and played many times. I was a fairly accomplished clarinetist, and I had the confidence of our musical teacher who had embraced me. So all of these bring back a flood of memories. And then before I got to Palmyra High School, my parents did not have a home of their own when I was born as an only child. So I lived with them in the servants' quarters of the home in which they worked. And about the age of 6, my mother put me in a Catholic boarding school, Cornwalls Heights, Pennsylvania, Order of the Blessed Sacrament. So from approximately the age of 6 until I got to Palmyra, I was raised by white Irish Catholic nuns. Now, I learned to write and I learned grammar from the Catholic nuns. So when I wrote my first book, and the publisher was HarperCollins, and they were coming in preparing to get the book ready for publication. And I'm sitting in this room and they have the book covers of all more distinguished authors than I am. And the senior editor says, you know, Mr. Jones, we have some suggestions of how you might want to change the sequence of the manuscript. But we were commenting among ourselves that we hardly found any grammatical errors
in the writing of your manuscript. You know, we have lots of authors and they write, but you know, they make a lot of mistakes. And so I said, well, you see, I was taught English and grammar by Irish nuns in a Catholic boarding school. And I don't think it is congenitally possible for me to write an incorrect sentence in the English language. Because if I go there, I remember the pointer. Master Jones, you know better than that. So at Palmyra, what an extraordinary opportunity here to be back. I want to share with you an experience. When I was visiting my parents one summer in Longport, New Jersey, I was about 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, during the summer when I wasn't in boarding school. My parents worked for the Lippincott family. They had a secluded beach house in Longport. And one day I rode a bike out from the secluded beach house into the nearby area to go to a candy store. And I found myself quickly surrounded by young white boys, similar age, I guess about 11 or 12, as I said, I was about 11. And these young white boys started shouting words at me that I had never heard before in the seclusion of the area that I had been raised. As I was riding, these white boys shouted words at me and said, gorilla, nigger, jigaboo, monkey, where'd you get and steal that bike? Get off of that bike. And they were threatening in the way in which they said those words. So I was threatening, and I rode as fast as I could back to the compound to where my parents worked, and I go into the kitchen. My mother and I come into the kitchen crying, and my mother looked at me. She says, what's going on? And I'm saying, Mama, and I tell her what happened. And she says, well, what? I said, you, Mama. And I told her what these boys called me, and my mama said, rather harshly, I was rather surprised. She said, come over here. So I thought I'd get some sympathy. So she says, come over here. And there was a mirror right outside the kitchen in the hallway where she worked. She said, look in that mirror and tell me, what do you see? And she said it in such a way that I almost felt like I had done something wrong. She said, look in that mirror and tell me, what do you see? And so I'm saying, Mama, you know, I see you, I see me. She says, no, look again, tell me, what do you see? And I'm confused. I said, Mama, I see you, I see me. She says, no, what you see is the most beautiful thing that God has created. Don't you pay no mind what those white boys said to you. Mama loves you, God loves you, and you are beautiful. Mama loves you, God loves you, and you are beautiful. Well, let me tell you something. Those words have stood with me like a steel rod up, down my spine. And then I get to Palmyra High School, and in so many words, the teachers say to me, you can be the best that you can be. Now, in 1949, there'd be the lunchroom, and there would be the Negro and the colored students in one part of the lunchroom, and there would be the white students in the other part of the lunchroom. So, I'm a little confused, coming in because of that experience. And I developed friendships with my students at Palmyra. So we had a third group. When we went to the lunchroom, there were about 15 of us. And there were the Negro students, the colored students, and the white students. Now, little did I know that some of those students who ended up friends of mine, that they would be also some of the closest friends I had in high school. I lived in East Riverton, New Jersey when I went to high school. But I had developed friends, white students that I would come. A couple of my white student friends lived in Riverton, and I would come to their home and do homework and stay overnight. And they would come in East Riverton and stay overnight with me. So I guess, much to my surprise, when the class selected a girl and a boy that they would vote most likely to succeed, they selected me, and they selected this other young woman, a white girl. I, as you know, I guess you know, I was valedictorian of the class. I was president of the Honor Society. I repeat, I want to use a word that's become famous. They're not famous, but it's called a takeaway. What do you get away from this? Your takeaway from my being here today at Palmyra should be that no matter what someone else says or make a judgment about you, you look in the mirror every day. In fact, you want to give me a present, a coming home present. I want each of you, before you go to bed tonight, before you lay your head down, I want you to go into the mirror in your house. I want you to get close up into that mirror and look at it closely. And I want you to say to yourself, I am beautiful. I love me. God loves me. And I can be anything. You hear what I'm saying? Be the best that you can be. Don't let anybody, any third party, determine whether or not you can do this and you can do that. Because if a only child of domestic household servants can be embraced. And by the way, when I was at the boarding school raised by Irish nuns from the age of 6 to 14, every other day, I would hear the nuns say to me one way or another, Master Jones, we love you, God loves you, and we want you to be a good boy and a good student. Constant reinforcement, constant reinforcement. So the takeaway is that you have the power within your own hands. You have the power to have the mindset. Yes, I'm a realist, you're a realist. There are real problems you will face. There are real problems you will face as you go forward in the world. But I'm suggesting to you that you develop an inner gyroscope and a compass to anchor yourself. To anchor yourself in a cement mold of self-confidence, a cement mold of self-love, and a cement mold of respect for others. How you treat other people is a reflection of what you think about yourself. And as you go forward, you'll read a lot of things. You'll read great things in literature. And I could summarize some of those things by just saying, reach for the stars. Be the very best that you can be. Think about it. Yes, when I was 29 years old and Martin Luther King Jr. was 31, I met him, and for 7.5 years, thereafter I would end up being his personal lawyer, perhaps speechwriter and political advisor. But had I not had a foundation of self-confidence and education, I would not have been capable of responding to that opportunity. I would have not had the skill sets. I just wouldn't have had it. I teach a course which I created at the University of San Francisco, and I lecture at Stanford University. That course is called From Slavery to Obama, Renewing the Promise of Reconstruction. The thesis of that course is that it is impossible for anybody in the United States of America today to understand that thorny issue of race that comes up in all different kinds of forms. It's impossible unless you understand and go back and look at the history of our country, particularly the history of slavery and its concomitant doctrine of white supremacy. Because it's that institution and its ideology of white supremacy that has had profound, consequential impact on subsequent generations of the descendants of slaves, holders, and slaves. And so we are challenged here today, even in the 21st century, wrestling with this demon. But we will not be capable of resolving this demon unless we bring the skill set of the best level of education, the best values that we are capable of. I am not a one-off. I am not some kind of freak out of Palmyra. Sitting among you are more Clarence Joneses and their female equivalent, Clarice Jones. Whatever success I was able to have at Palmyra, I want to make the record clear publicly. That success is a direct result of the extraordinary, unconditional love of my parents, the white Irish nuns who raised me in that Catholic boarding school, and the teachers here at Palmyra that embraced me and encouraged me to be the best that I can be. Let me just tell you a story. In my senior year, I I wanted to go to college. So I went down, they had something at that time called the V-12 program. The US Navy had a V-12 program. If you signed up for the Navy at a certain kind of academic level, you would have to commit yourself to do 4 to 6 years, I think. But the Navy would pay for 4 years of education, free, and so forth. So I signed up for that. The problem is you need your parents' consent. So I forged I just signed my parents' name. Because I wasn't 18 at the time. I needed to be 18. I was just going on 18. So they called the high school to check. And they found out, and the high school principal, Mrs. Elizabeth McDonald, I think, came and she called me into her office. She says, Clarence, what's this all about? And I said, well, I wanted to go to college. And she says, you're going to go? I said, no, I don't think so. She said, well, why? I said, because I don't, I can't go to college without any money. So let me just tell you something about Palmyra. The principal and the teachers at Palmyra, out of their own pocket, they took money to pay for the applications that they would send for me. You understand what I'm saying? Out of their own pocket. And I got in to every school that I applied to. But I needed something. I needed not just to get in, I needed to have all my tuition paid for. And I need room and board. And with the combination of my grades, my recommendation, my college boards, although I got on the University of Pennsylvania and Syracuse and Princeton and others at Yale and so forth, none of them offered me a scholarship. It's only Columbia. So I ended up going to Columbia University. I'd gotten a superb education, was valedictorian in my class, but I wouldn't have been able to engage in that process but for the teachers and principals taking money out of their own pocket to make it possible for me to go to college and telling me I didn't have to go down and lie to try to enlist in the Navy, that they wanted me to go to college, and so I did. And so by enabling me to come back, you also make it possible for me to publicly, and to the extent that there's any media and press here, whatever you take away from this, I want you to say that Dr. Clarence B. Jones came back to Palmyra High School to publicly acknowledge and thank with gratitude from the bottom of his heart the generosity, the teachers, the principal that made it possible. So you, by the way, did me a favor. Little did I know that I would be blessed with a certain degree of providential longevity. I'm 86 going on 87. I don't know how many years I have left. I don't want to, but if I die tomorrow, I've already gone to heaven. This is my transition stage to heaven, right here. Right here. Right here. Mayor McDonald, Principal Valerie, right here. You understand? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, and be the very best that you can be.